Warning.
You are now tuned in to 7 Mile Radio.
Production.
7 Mile Radio.
Peace, peace, and divine love. You are tuned in to Tapped In Talk Radio on 7 Mile Radio every Thursday at 7 p.m. I am one of your co-hosts, Osaranga. We have Tanisha in the house.
Hey everybody, I missed y'all last week,
We missed you.
and I know we're going to have introductions and I'll speak more. But hey everybody, I'm glad to be here this week.
We also got Champ.
What up, though? How's everybody? I'm good.
I'm good as well.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Happy to be here. And
Like
we have
always.
absolutely. We also have a guest in the house. We have Empress Deanne.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I am amazing. Well, how was y'all week?
Trying.
Trying, huh?
Ups and downs,
Oh.
smiles and frowns.
So retrograding for you, Champ?
No, I didn't have. I didn't have some production progress like with my daughter. So
That is so
Progress.
beautiful.
Oh, nice. That's
So,
retrograding.
Yeah.
Yes.
then there's other areas ain't so much progress.
It ain't going to be. It's
Man,
not, I think the 25th.
I was working on the job and it was just like I knew I shouldn't have started this because where my mind was at, and I was just making mistakes after mistakes. Just like
Yeah.
then I was just in the flux for like 2 days. That weighs heavy on me to be able to deliver, and then stuff didn't compile with work, and it'd be the littlest stuff that starts compiling, and then it's like, where do you choose? Which one to
Where do
give
you
the most
start?
attention
Yeah,
to?
yeah.
And it's just like, this just jump in. As long as I just get one
Get
done,
something
it
done.
just-
Yeah, man, that's the story of my life, bro.
man.
Oh, yes. Peace to Mark, too.
Hey, Mark.
What's going on? What's going on?
Sorry.
So for me, this has been so far a really good week. I don't know even why, but it's just been an awesome week. And but I've been on I wasn't here last week because I was not feeling well. That eclipse got me a little bit, and it wasn't the eclipse itself, but it was more so the weather afterwards. I was down so bad with my sinuses and the rain and the big storm that followed. So yeah, I was kind of messed up with my sinuses last week. But following of which, I've been like really in this I don't even know why I remember why, but I can't tell you because I don't recall. But I've been really in like 6th house energy, right? And that's Virgo, and that's just like day-to-day routines. So I've been so focused on constructing a day-to-day routines for myself for success. Like what do I want to get into my diet regimen, if I want to take supplements, if not, what I want to do nutritionally as far as breakfast and lunch, just setting up this daily structure thing.
Is that where your Aries is?
No, my Aries is actually in the 5th house,
Okay.
and so I don't know what's aspecting but there's something to do with the 6th house and the eclipse is occurring.
Okay.
But yeah, I've been really focused, and the relationships is just not personal, all intimate, but just like all around my family. I see the relationship, my kids' relationships they have with people in their lives and stuff. I see this eclipse really is highlighting that
Absolutely.
1st house, 7th house axis, because the 1st house is you as an individual, right? And then that 7th house is the partnerships. So this is really a time where you are identifying who you are and what you really want out of the partnerships you create, business, co-workers, peers, all this kind of stuff. So I just been going with that flow, like, okay, one day at a time on that.
Yeah.
But as far as my focus lately has really just for some reason been on my day-to-day routines, and I'm encouraged by that. And I think that I'm one of those who's like, oh, the same thing every day, the same job. Like, I'm supposed to do this job for 30 years every day. I'm supposed to do this for 30 years. Or I'm supposed to do this for this. So I've always been a person that was really routine adverse. Like, my days don't connect. Every day is a new day, new opportunity. But I realized that, I have to start connecting my days at this age. Like, today, have to build on yesterday, have to build on the day before. And it's all Virgo energy, so I'm really been tapping into that idea of routines and accepting the idea that we do need routines in life.
And go time, like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of been the energy with the eclipse. Like it's just time to get to it.
Yeah, right.
know,
And doing it,
it's-
not just thinking it, but following
Yeah.
through, right? Because I'm
Doing
telling you,
it.
I've been doing stuff just following through. They're like, "Oh, this the new you." Like, I don't know, but this is what I'm doing today and tomorrow and the next day.
Nice.
So
nice,
it's
nice.
so far a good week. So far a good week on that type of routine aspect of building a life.
Audrine said the theme of this solar eclipse is review and release.
Oh,
And
I love
absolutely.
it. It's feeling so
It
good.
has been very
is feeling
introspective
so
and
good.
a lot of releasing and a lot of clearing the air, especially with relationships. Like, you know, people just been coming up speaking from their heart. You know, no matter where you at, whether it's confrontation or not, like they addressing it. So for some it may be chaotic, for others it's peaceful and clearing.
And
Yeah.
I dream
So
say
it's a new
this
beginning.
solar eclipse has me cleaning house when it comes to relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely both aspects. That first, everybody be aware, because I've seen people already having some relationship turmoil. So just be aware, be patient with be patient with your people, all your people.
Yeah,
patient.
My mom is in town
Absolutely.
this week.
definitely patient with self.
That's a relationship. So yeah, all relationships, be patient with them. Understand your people.
And have grace.
Yes, have grace. And if
Yes.
you need to cut somebody off, cut them off. This is a good time.
Oh.
To, if you need to cut somebody off, disengage
cut
your
'em.
energy, all that kind of stuff.
Cuss
Just
them out.
Cut.
Cut
Cut them out.
It's a lot of
Yes,
endings. A
things
lot of
that's
endings
not
happening
serving
right
you,
now.
relationships that are not serving you.
Yeah.
And we definitely probably will touch on that when we go into the topic a little bit. How we create those
Absolutely.
types of situations for ourselves.
So let's go ahead and get on into the
Let's
topic
get
then,
into
huh? All right. So today's topic is inner child healing. So yeah, what does inner child healing like? What is that to you? You want to answer first, Tanisha?
If you want me to, for me, inner child healing it's different for. I would assume it's different for everybody, but for me, as an adult, looking back on my inner child, for me, inner child healing for me really means just acceptance, because I always speak on me developing ideas and values and beliefs that may not have been true or might not have been universal, and then applying that to my life and it's not working or not successful. So for me, inner child healing has really been a process of deprogramming. For me, some people have other type of issues to get over, but I was heavily programmed. Coming up in environment society I came up in, I was religious, education systems, political systems, all this type of things. I was family systems. I was heavily programmed, and so my inner child healing has really been understanding myself and what's real for me, as a whole soul, as an individual, what my purpose is and my individuality and my sovereignty is. So that's what inner child healing has been a lot for me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And what about you, Champ?
Inner child. Trying to actually get the definition of inner child healing. So
Go ahead.
my inner child should affect me being an adult.
So let's talk about that. Yes, thank you, Champ. The inner child, we all have our inner child residing inside of us.
So right there. So as an adult,
Yes.
I have childish ways that's tucked inside me.
No, it doesn't mean you have childish ways, but
Childlike is not childish.
So what's the difference between being a child and being an adult that I'm still attached to being a child?
Childlike is not childish.
Okay.
This may be
What's the difference between childlike and childish?
So I would think that and we definitely gonna get you in, because she just I guess we
I don't want to
just
take it off the,
we
But
just
to get to
we setting us.
get to the explanation,
This is a good point. We have to define it. We have to define it, right? So
Maybe-
for me,
maybe I
and
wanna-
define it, and then Mark, you please absolutely join in. So for me, I'm going to define it in terms of a psychological aspect for me, in the aspect of you develop your ideas and your thoughts, your all this type of stuff in your early
Your
the way your
programming.
brain is wired,
Your
and the way you are
personality.
able to be trained, and the way your soul is developed. You agreed to come to this earth. So when I consolidate and synthesize all the information for me, the inner child is the stuff I learned before I was pretty much 8 or 9 years old almost. Right? Like when I cried, did somebody come to my crib? I don't know, I don't know that, but as I grow older, you start to, this is programmed into you. Like I cried and nobody came, or I sat with my mom and she didn't play with me. She was sad. You don't consciously
All of your
remember,
experiences
and so
affect.
that's your inner child
Are we
stuff.
talking about how our minds evolve from a child to an adult?
Yes.
Okay,
And the programming.
Yes.
okay.
15 years
Without
old, that's not
saying-
your
without-
inner child. If
hold
you
on,
was
hold on.
15, that's not
Hold
your
on,
inner
hold on.
child.
When we're sitting there talking about how our minds evolve from a child to an adult, so let's say 2 years old. Let's be safe and just say 2 years old, right?
I'll
So
take you, Audrey.
that's when we started to communicate. So from 2 years old to as an adult is the evolution of our mind, right? So we're comparing our adult mind to our child mind, right?
And it's my definition.
No, yeah, I'm talking general. So we're getting into our child mind evolving into our adult mind, right? And the topic of the show is inner child healing, right?
Yes.
So we actually has to talk about where was the hurt or what was the damage as a child, right?
That needs the healing.
Huh?
So that needs the healing. And I guess
That needs the healing, right? So then we have to identify what we're going to define what was hurt versus our being a child evolving into the adults, because we're going to make mistakes, we're going to make bad decisions, we're going to be influenced, right? As an adult, we are still being influenced, making mistakes and having lessons that we're going to apply what we learned or what we went through as a child to an adult. And so we have to heal who we was as a child to now that we're an adult.
It's more
That's
so
not-
of
that's not so much
being.
that. It's not so much
8
that.
years old
It's
and
like,
under.
It's like
8 years
It's
old
dealing
and
with
under.
introspection though. You asking yourself, why do I do what I do?
Yeah,
And
maybe
then-
it's the experiences that you went through as a child that caused you to move the way that you move as an adult in certain arenas.
But
You know what I'm saying?
that's what I meant by evolution.
It's
So
you've been
how
conditioned.
I'll get to that. Because it's always, we are conditioned to a certain extent as far as our environment influences us. So we can call that being conditioned. You know what I'm saying? We stay in the same environment. We are conditioned. We are being conditioned because of the influence, right? So going back to inner child healing, for me to look at my inner child or when I was a child, what did I go through as a child that I need to be healed? That now I'm an adult, I survived it.
Well, it's
I'm
possible.
here,
It's
and
possible
I'm
that it may
adult.
not be your story. You know, it's
yeah,
possible.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying to get to it, because I could sit there and tell stories like, oh, I felt this, how my parents treated me like this, or I was in this neighborhood and this and that, this and
But
that.
that's not. But when you talk about the inner child, the thing about
Because you have
for my-
mentioned programming,
Yes.
conditioning, that has to do with parents and your environment.
Yes, and so when I think of in terms of what I've learned and things I've studied about the whole primary preconditioning stages of development and child development, that inner child is the body keeps the score. Right, your body keeps a score. So regardless of if you recall something, and when they talk about early childhood development and child development, we talking about 8 years and younger, and so you don't have no capacity to really recall a lot of that stuff. That's why people be like, "Oh, I went in a trance and I remember when I was little I got raped," because you don't recall that kind of stuff. But that's where the work comes in, because that's when you get to learn. You get to delve into family history. You get to delve into the people in your family. What was going on when I was born? Right? Like, what was my mama going through when I was born? Where was my daddy at? What was
And
my
how
grandma
did that
doing?
affect me?
What was the dynamics?
This
How
is my
was I
question.
groomed?
This is my
Because
question.
this is preconditioning we talking
This
about.
is my question, like how you mentioned, from 8 years old and
Under.
prior and under, right? how is what I was going through from 8 years old and under should be affecting me as
Because
an
it
adult?
wires your brain.
Okay, it
That's
wires
how you
our
develop.
brain,
That's
right?
what shapes you.
But as we get older, right?
That's
we
your
break-
foundation,
hold on.
though. Regardless,
We break away from a lot of that. You know what I'm saying? So that's when you start having conflict.
Well, not
with your-
always.
No.
Not always.
The
I'm not
body
saying
keeps a
always.
score. You move on.
Everything's not black and white.
'Cause
When
it-
I-
it-
when I
it's
mention- when I mention
repressed.
something,
It's
I'm not-
repressed.
When I
No.
mention something, I'm not mentioning black and white. Like, oh, because I said this, then what about this? There's always the exception. There's always something different. What I'm just saying, like generally, right? If we're talking about everything that happened as a child prior to, right? So once we start getting older, we start shaping into a different person because we're in other environments, we're in other influences
Absolutely.
from after 8 years
So,
old.
So let us
over the
suppose-
years, so over the years, what it sounds like, Champ, is that you have a way of self healing over time from those traumas.
Self-soothing. It's called self-soothing. So let us suppose.
Or being
that
healed,
you
because
have.
it's not soothing.
No, I'm just
Or-
saying,
or
as
we
far as
just
evolving
suppress
when you're
it and
mature.
Yeah,
don't
right?
feel it no more, and don't feed
let's
it
just
attention.
suppose
What-
that
okay,
shit was
here-
going
here-
on
here
when you
where
was
my-
born.
Okay, stuff. Okay, what happened to whatever my household at 8 years old and everything that I'm experiencing, right? As I'm getting older, we start maturing, right? And
But you don't-
maturity tells you to start letting go or start processing stuff. So it was mistakes or anything. That was a lesson. You know what I'm
No.
saying?
It never becomes a
Mistakes
lesson. No, because it doesn't become a lesson until you identify it as so. That's why naming it and claiming it and identifying it is important. To be like, oh, and that's where educating yourself becomes important, because it's like you have to seek out additional information to seek out something outside of your condition.
That's
Like,
automatic. That's
oh,
inevitable.
I
We
do
do
this.
that.
Why do I? When you
We
when
do
you,
that inevitably.
So let us suppose that prior to being 8 years old, life was lifing. Prior to you being 8 years old, life was lifing. Your parents was having whatever interaction they was having. You don't know what kind of baby mama, baby daddy your parents had going on. You don't know if you know.
It has a
if
lot
you
to
had
do with the
stay in
nurturing and the love that
all
you
of
may
that,
receive, or
because
maybe you didn't.
You don't process that information in a conscious way, but your body and your subconscious, your soul, your aura, your energy processes all that, and it doesn't forget.
And then it
doesn't
shows
let
in
it
your
go.
in your
It
relationships,
holds.
your connections with people moving forward. So somebody may complain and say, "Oh, well, you're not that open to me, or you don't show emotions." But
Like-
a lot of times, that's your inner child that has put that wall up because that inner child didn't receive a certain amount of love or had to put up a barrier of protection.
this where
so now you're operating out of that inner child that had lack, and you won't know that the inner child needs healing until you can sit and identify it.
This is where attachment styles develop. Your attachment styles develop before you're even 8 years old.
Okay.
Before
It's-
you're even 8 years
this-
old, they know if you're gonna be a clingy kid, if you're gonna be an independent kid, if
Yeah.
you're gonna be an adventurous kid, if you're gonna be a kid that don't want to get off the porch. All that's determined before you 8 years old.
You think so?
All it is. Your
Okay,
I can't say because I'm not a scientist.
biologically-
I didn't do the
No,
research.
no,
But according to
biologically-
research in child
biologically-
development and the way
biologically,
teachers, we have to
through
consider.
birth, the birth-
We talk about the wait a minute, champ, because I don't know if you. Yeah, because I always have to bring you to where we speak it, to where I'm
you're-
speaking.
I will let the guest
I'm
speak in a
speaking
moment too.
and yes, we definitely want her to come in. But
Well,
I'm
I
speaking
want
in
him to
terms
be able
of.
to understand.
I want to be, and I feel be feeling like.
I think once
that's
you
where I be coming from,
explain
too.
more, though, it will bring more understanding.
Because this is what our teachers learn when they teach our kids, right? They sitting down in front of our kids. They trying to teach our kids these things. This is like
What
child.
about their childhood?
This is
their inner childhood.
This is
Everybody,
well,
it's everybody.
everything is early
This-
childhood development. Is whole
I'm
science.
about to spin the block and to where I'm about to say.
I hope you're gonna spin the block. I hope you're gonna spin the block to be agreeable and not spin the block to be more disagreeable. Go ahead, honey.
Well, I want you to understand what it is. So for me, inner child healing is about reparenting myself, what I didn't get as a child. So the original question,
Yes, the original question was,
What is
yeah,
inner
what
child
is,
to you?
yeah, what is it? What is the inner child? What is inner child healing to you?
it's emotional.
Yeah.
It is hard work. You really have to be willing to sit down with yourself and look in the mirror. For me, my childhood was very traumatic. My mother was on drugs. I was left at the hospital. So right out the gate, you have abandonment, rejection, a plethora of feelings that come along. And of course, as a baby, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You just crying all the time or making stupid noises.
And then I get adopted.
Lord have mercy.
And then
How long were you in the system as far as a foster child before you were adopted?
Right out the hospital.
Oh, that's a
My
blessing.
mother's cousin
Oh, that's so
decided to take me in, but then she died when I was 3.
Oh Lord, more trauma.
So then her husband decided to keep me.
No.
So you're talking about being raised by a man with no emotions at all. Raising a young girl.
It's
I
not
didn't-
even his, so he don't have that real genuine nurturing for her like his daughter.
Why did he do
How
that?
to exercise nurturing.
I
Why,
think because
what was
he
his?
loved
How
his
do you
wife.
feel that? How did you receive him taking that, making that sacrifice for you? How did you perceive or receive that, or feel about
I feel
that?
like he had to do it. He felt he needed to do it because the love his wife, my auntie, had
So you
for
didn't,
me.
So you didn't receive that as an act of love toward you. You felt like he did this out of obligation and made you still not feel worthy.
Really? Yes, absolutely.
And kids can feel that though. They can feel
So sorry.
when the love is more out of an obligation versus out of the heart. Because it's still that disconnect, and you still want to feel like you want to be able to hug or be cuddled or, oh baby, it's okay, or come, you know.
And part of me wants to believe that he tried, but I also feel like as an adult I've learned, like you said earlier, our parents have trauma too. He's mourning the death of his wife. Now he has to take care of a new child. That was probably hard.
A three-year-old little girl.
He has no idea what to do with that.
So it is all obligatory.
Yeah, and it's trauma. And even as an adult, he's told me, he provided physically, the material things, the house over my head, but there was no emotional love, no care. So that has shown up in my adult life. It's hard for me to get close to people for fear that they're going to abandon me or that they're going to use me. It gets really tricky. But where inner child comes in, now I'm learning to reparent myself. I was so busy trying to be the parent I needed to other people, I didn't parent myself. So now that's the work that I'm doing. And again, it's a journey. It is very...
It feel good though, don't it?
It does. It's anxiety driven.
What is?
This whole thing. I am
So anxiety was the... Well, that's a good... I mean, anxiety triggered you... Not really triggered, but prompted you to seek further healing. Like, to get to the root cause. Like, why am I anxious?
Even to come on the podcast and talk about my story, it was very anxiety filled. I got here super early so I could sit and talk with my friend to bring me back down. But it's like, this needs to be told. I need to share my story so other people can either get help, they can take from what I've gone through. It's not an easy journey, but it's so worth it. Like, my trauma didn't win. It may have won a battle, but it did not win the war.
So my question is, so that's your that's like your primary trauma as far as like this. Okay, that's what I was gonna get into, right? Because it's complex trauma, right? Complex, and then there's just traumatic trauma, like one incident happened. So the incident would be that you were, your newborn status, and then the passing. But was there additional trauma that built on, and then that built on top of that? And how did that work for you?
Oh, absolutely. So I didn't find out that my parents were on drugs until I was about 8 or 9. I remember he pulled me out of church to tell me.
Y'all went to church too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you was really fucked up. No, I'm just
no, absolutely. Church, I love to be in the choir. That was really about
church
it.
and drugs.
But he pulled me out of church to tell me, he's like, I have something to tell you. I was like, okay. Your parents didn't, and he didn't say drugs, of course. Your parents had a different life.
Who told you that?
My adopted dad.
Oh.
Like I said, he's technically like an uncle.
So your adopted parents, they were sober people.
Well, it was just him because his wife passed.
His wife had, but he was a sober man,
Mhm.
and then he came back and he told you your parents were not sober people.
Then he decided to get remarried.
Oh goodness.
So that brought on a whole another plethora of emotions. New baby, plus a new stepmom. And it was all good at first. But then she became abusive.
Like physically, mentally, emotionally,
Physically.
physically.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall a switch like she wasn't abusive and then you was like, oh, she became abusive? Where was the bridge?
I
to
think
that?
she was playing the game, trying to pretend to be the happy mother, you know.
So was it like
I
during
love
her
my
pregnancy?
extra kids.
I think that was probably to get the father's attention.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that pick me energy.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But was it like that? Was it when she was pregnant or when she had a new baby? When did she become abusive?
Well, they
towards
got
you?
married because, in my opinion, they got married because she got pregnant. So they got married 1 month. My little brother came the next month.
Okay.
Yeah. And then our first altercation, I was in 8th grade,
Okay.
over some not dry dishes. The dishes weren't dried all the way. And hit to the face.
So, and that's where we get tricky with the whole inner child, right? And because I'm a parent, and so I've had some teenage daughters, right? So, you say you was in the 8th grade. Did she really was it a whole change in the whole dynamic, or did she just become abusive? Because when we talk about inner child healing, we have there are segments to it in terms of your psychological development, and so at some point, like, teenagers become teenagers, you know, they rebel a little bit, right? And so you mentioned the 8th grade, which is why I'm asking this, in terms of, were you at a rebellious stage and then she responded the way she responded, or and that's the way you perceive it, or was it really just she became abusive? Because we
In
have
my
to be accountable
opinion-
for our stuff in our inner child.
Absolutely. I was watching TV with my brother, and she said, I need you to wash the dishes. And I said, okay, no problem. I just wanted to finish the TV show first. But she wanted it done right there. So she became controlling. It was, everything had to be done on her time.
When she wanted it done.
And then again, I said, okay, went and washed the dishes. She liked them done a certain way. A dish wasn't dried all the way, and again, it was a hit to the face.
Was there rules on when chores are supposed to be done?
No.
Interesting.
But then it continued. So it wasn't just a one-time thing.
It's like
That
once
sound like some-
once the gate was open,
some major
it was,
pain
it
type
was
shit
open.
though.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, on top of feeling abandoned, I'm being abused by a new mother. So, for me also, I grew up with a man. So to have this new woman in my life, it's like, oh, I finally get a mother. I finally get a mom. Because again, parents were on drugs.
So
I
I want to
didn't.
know
Imagine going through that
how
with your real
did the
parent,
relationship with you?
Yeah.
How was the relationship
That's-
with you and your father at the during that process, or him taking on a new wife, getting a new baby, him having a life, that he was creating, building for it, including you. But how was he in that aspect and accommodating you?
He wasn't really present. Again, he was the provider. So he felt like as
That's
long
how it
as
worked.
he worked, paid the bills, she pretty much became the caregiver.
She was like the household. She was in the house.
So one of the viewers, Audrine, she mentioned the master slave dynamic between parents and children. And I even noticed that in some parents treating their grown children the same way. Like, it doesn't shift. They still expect you to be, like the slave. You're supposed to always listen. Although you're grown, you may have children of your own and out on your own, but that mentality we have.
We don't
allow our children to grow up.
I don't like that term master slave when it comes to parents and their child and how they parent, because the parent is in a position that I'm going to facilitate this relationship. You know, I had the maturity, I had the wisdom, you know, and where I believe where the clash comes in at is when they talked about the difference between, excuse my pronunciation, but autonomy and
Autonomy.
Yeah, autonomy and rebellious, right? It's because the child is coming into its own, right?
As long as they're
So
on
the
and
clash
on, yeah.
becomes between the parenting methods that they use to grow this child versus them coming into their own, their personalities, the way they're thinking, and we might not have an agreement because now this parenting method is not conducive to how they want to be and how they want to grow themselves.
Or, right, sometimes, it goes back to what you said, those two things, wisdom and what was the other thing? Something
Knowledge.
that the parents have. But if they don't, the maturity, if they don't
Maturity,
have the
yeah.
wisdom and maturity themselves as a parent, right, then the disconnect comes right there. So that will sometimes introduce a slave master mentality when a parent just wants to be controlling. I want you to do things just because I want you to do it. There's no real logic or definition behind,
right,
or no lesson in what I want you to do. It just,
But a lot
I
of
want
times
you to
they'll
do this
make it
right
up in
now.
their mind.
That's my okay. So
Yeah.
now that's them lacking maturity and wisdom, right? Because they're
Wait,
just
I don't know. Wait a minute. Let me just say. And Adrena had a really good point that I really was going to speak on, but this whole
So you just cut him off?
no,
like she
wait.
always do. Yeah.
But wait a minute,
Damn.
because Marcus, y'all talking about this whole slave child dynamic like it's a bad thing.
No, we didn't say it was a bad. He was just cleaning it up.
He cleaning it up something, but I wouldn't say
It is a bad thing when it becomes.
It
Because
could be a bad
that child
thing.
will grow up and then have
It should be
issues.
slave and master.
I
It should
don't
be
think-
parent and child.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I don't like
yes.
that.
And that
I don't.
means
I think
Because
that,
the
But
version,
you don't
of,
like
the
it because
version
it's
of
not
slave
right,
and
but
master, we look at it as an abusive thing.
And-
So I
but
don't
some
like to
parents-
apply
some
to
parents-
it.
I don't-
But hey, what
I'm
there
on
is,
me and
there
Champ on the
is-
same
but it's
team on
true.
this.
It
Me and
happens
Champ on the same
sometimes.
team. Me and
Right.
Champ is on the same team on
It
this.
happens.
Right.
I don't feel
Right.
like
some
that.
parents are like that. That's some people have
parents
had that
are
experience
abusive.
with
Some parents
parents
are
like
That's,
that.
that's,
Because
that's,
the difference
that,
between
And
instructing,
it spews out in their
teaching,
adulthood
conditioning.
because now they're timid.
Exactly.
They don't know how to communicate.
Yes.
But
They're
is that-
afraid to
That's totally
communicate.
So you
But
said
it's
that you don't like
it.
when we use these phrases and terms is to follow up with the definition. So when someone's
I don't
listening
like
to you,
them labels.
it doesn't get misconstrued just because this person sit there and feel
Cause-
like my parents were treating me
No,
like
I
a
am
slave
the
the whole
authority.
nine.
I
But
am the
understand the
authority.
difference between a parent treating them like a slave with an immaturity mindset
Yes. Yeah.
versus this parent is over here telling you what to do and how I
Yes.
want to do it because I have a reason of wisdom.
Yeah, so that's what I'm
behind
saying.
it.
Without
Right.
the reasoning, without that,
That's why I always
so-
to explain definitions so people don't get misconstrued of the context
it's
of
no
concept.
slave. It's no slave and master.
again, the slave and the master, it exists. It's not
It
right.
do exist.
Right.
It do
We're not
exist.
saying that they're right.
In
right.
abusive
Right?
households.
Okay, so
It
that's
do
that's
exist.
so that's what
Yes.
we're all agreeing on. Since
Some
we're
people
explaining
have
that.
That's
experience
applied
that.
in abusive household
Exactly.
and not
Yes.
just all
Exactly.
household
Yes.
where a parent
Not
is
at
telling
all.
you
no.
what to do.
And
And
I
you and
hope
the
I
child are
wasn't-
not understanding
I hope
it.
I didn't present it to be
No, I
that's
didn't say
everybody's
you
like
did.
that.
We're just drawing the
Because let me
lines
tell you
between what is
I'm
and what
making
ain't,
sure
as far
that
as that's concerned.
everyone is receiving the information properly. So long as
Yes.
they understand the
There
definition,
is
they'll
discipline,
process
there is
that
authority,
information
there is
versus
routine.
just talking and the person
Yes.
just receiving it however. Slave master.
There
now
are
they gonna look at their
chores.
parents different.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Or they may be
You
parents
do.
themselves right now and, reflecting on
demonstrate
how
that.
they're communicating
You a
with their
parent,
children.
make those.
because
you
we got a
know,
lot of
clean
parents
up.
in prison right now for abusing children.
Yeah, it's
You know
not.
what I'm
A,
saying? Mentally and
that's
and
a whole
verbally.
nother psychological
you know.
aspect. Yeah. Right.
So
Like
that's
somebody
why,
doing stuff.
when I told you I was going to spin the block. So when we
Yeah.
talk about inner healing, it's where it
About
was
time
this
you got
child was an abusive versus you're in a false sense of entitlement, and I'm sitting there trying to heal something that you wasn't even entitled to.
I can understand, and I can totally understand that, and I think that it's different for everybody.
Right.
That's a key point, because something that was really, I found really traumatic, you might find like, what? That's nothing. And that's why we all have to be sensitive and empathetic to everybody and each other, because it's like, what you might find is like, girl, that's a walk in the park. I might like, oh, I remember one day I had lunch money. You're going to be like, what? Like, I never had lunch. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking? We can't judge other people's experiences, essentially. And the thing about the inner child that is, and Adrena brought this up, that the inner child is typically associated with feelings of innocence, spontaneity, and creativity and playfulness, right? So if we don't heal that inner child, then we are doing ourselves disservice, because we're not going to be as creative as we can. We're going to walk around with this sense of shame and guilt. You know, it's like if we not going to be feeling spontaneous, like, oh, I can jump out there. You're going to be hindered. You're not going to be very playful. You're going to be defensive and who touching me? You want to, you know, be childlike. Those things are childlike. Innocence, the creativity, playfulness, the spontaneity, those are childlike qualities. You want to have access those things within you. It's people who will go to a party and won't even dance because they don't feel free enough to even go dance. Why?
Why are you entitled that as child behavior? That's human behavior.
Yes, it is.
That's human behavior.
It is human behavior, but you have to ask.
But they
you
tell
have
you
to assess
they
those
tell you
parts
going
of
into
yourself.
an adult to suppress those and tell you that you're now you're an adult
That's
because
the
you
point.
can suppress those.
That's-
No, it's a
You
balance.
don't want to.
So
And
when people apply to laugh and being free spirit, they want to apply it as being a child. No, that is human
There are
traits. Those is human behaviors.
There are
Just
so many
because we
people that don't
started
have that.
with
It's
no
so many people
responsibility,
that
was able
don't.
to do it more. And as we can become an adult, we still experience that. Not being a child, experience laughter and being silly and just being yourself. That's not being no child. That's being a human being. Being a child, carrying child behaviors.
It said it's associated with. I didn't say it was, because we talk about associations. This thing is associated with feminists and men, child, adult. It's just associations. It's just idioms. It's just what do they call them?
But if we take
emojis,
all that,
essentially.
it's
It's just things that's
if we take all
associated. It don't
those
mean it's
adjectives
true.
out and just
But
make
yeah.
it, yes.
The point I'm making in saying that is that these types of things hinder us from assessing those parts of ourselves. It hinders us if we don't really do the inner healing. And you might be at a 10, you might be at a 5, you might be at a 7, but you could be more. You want to be the best you, right? So at all times you want to be as spontaneous as you can be, not without these preconceived conditions of fear, doubt, lack, all kind of shit you might be programmed with as an individual based on your childhood experiences. Why your childhood doesn't feel fly and fancy free, how you might have felt as riding on down the street on your bike, where anything is possible. I can go anywhere, I can do wheelies, I'm free on this bike. If you don't feel like that every day of your life, then there's something hindering you from that, because that's a part of yourself that should be accessible to you at all times. If you want to, it's because of conditioned religions, they say, oh, no, you can't do this. Your education, you go to school, you learn so much. It's like, oh, if you're going to be refined, if you're going to be bona fide, you got to act like this. You know what I mean? Like, your relationships got to look like this. If you're going to be considered mature, these are the kind of things you got to put that kind of stuff away. Kind of like when I was a man, when I was a kid, I thought like I was a kid, but when I became an adult, I put away childish things. No. Right? Like, no, it's some of those things I still need. I still need my playfulness. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what's your perfect date? And I was just like, what you mean? I don't like to bowl. I don't want to fucking ratchet ball. I don't want to do none of that. I want to eat and go home. Right? Like, I need to get back in touch with my inner child. It might be something I want to do that's playful and fun. I don't like the putt-putt, so to speak. So, but yet you have to consciously search for things that you can do to enhance, to be, to assess that freedom we had as kids before we knew responsibility. And that's the point. Like before I knew responsibility, you could draw anything, and it is what you said it was. Like your imagination was broad. Like this can be that, and then that can be that. Your imagination was so. Now it's like, oh, okay, you think of something, it's like, oh, and you think of all the barriers to it. It's like, no, when you a kid, I can be anything I want to be. You have to have that in adulthood as well. And so many things squelch that in us. This like, oh, this is my life now. This is what I do. I got kids, I got a husband. We go to church, we come home. This is our routine. It's like,
where's the fun?
Where is life? All that's obligatory. Where is your life? Where are you getting? Because that's life force energy. That is life force energy. All of that. If you're not doing that, you are shortening your life almost. These are things that enhance your life and make it worth living. And we get so concerned because of childhood and our program, the way we wired, the way we were reared, we get just so caught up in being grown. Like, I'm grown. You know how old I am? I'm too old for that. Like, I'm too old for every fucking thing. Like, I don't do that. I'm grown. Like, I ain't doing that. I'm
But
free.
why-
So I
but hold
do
on,
wanna
Like, you
add-
can
hold on.
let us
Why do you believe-
add.
I was trying to find a way to jump in, so I'm sorry. I've been patiently waiting. I've been all in my head. But no, I wanted to add in that inner child healing doesn't always have to be something traumatic that happened to you.
Right.
You know, it could be something very simple. Like for myself, I was a 4.0 student. I always excelled in academics. I played every sport. I would master things, but I got to a point where I felt like I was doing too much, and I didn't want nobody else to feel down. Like, I was always rooting for the underdogs, so I didn't want to always be the person to excel. So I purposely started to allow myself to like take the back seat with things, and that ended up becoming a condition for me that I conditioned myself to be in, because I didn't want to. I wanted to be like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to have those friends. So like.
That's your thinking evolving.
Yeah, but
That's you
it's something I had to
evolving.
heal with that inner child, because I felt some type of way, you know.
So you regret it?
Do I regret holding that in?
No, regretting making those choices. Of
No, I don't regret anything, because it helped me to be who I am, and it helped me to hold space for other people who have done the same
So does
thing.
that part need to be healed?
It needed to be addressed.
No, does it need to be healed?
It needed to be addressed.
We're talking about healing.
I mean, overall, yeah,
I'm
healing.
making a
All
point
healing
to it. I'm
is
making a
just
point to
transmutation
it.
of energy. You know, it
Yeah.
don't necessarily mean something is broken because you're healing it. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, healing doesn't mean that you're broken. It's more so of transmuting the energy. When we speak about inner child healing, I'll say that, because it's not
I just
every
go
inner.
by the definition of healing. Healing is actually rebuilding something. It's actually
It's reparenting.
repairing
And that's what she's talking about,
So
reparenting.
to repair it has to be broke.
So can you talk about reparenting a little bit in this aspect?
No, I say repair. Not
I
repair.
know, but we have to stay centered on our topic in that
Repairing is repairing yourself is
repair-
parenting yourself.
to repair the inner child is
thank
to
you, Karma.
reparent. It's to reparent. I don't like the English language either. I don't like the word usage. I don't like the way the definitions coincide with usage. I don't. But nevertheless, they do have the same synonyms and the whole beginning. So they are cousin words, reparenting, repair. So please let us know a little bit more about reparenting.
Well, for me, reparenting is giving myself the love, the nurturing, the guidance, everything that I didn't get as a child.
How did you learn to do that though?
Oh, I'm still not done. I am still
It's
healing.
Still work, yes.
I am still a true work in progress. Like,
So let me ask a question. Let me pose a question to everybody. Maybe we can understand what repair. And I'll talk through stuff. So I ask a question I don't even know the answer to, and work through it. So my question is, how do you know how you need to be reparented? How did you know where and how you needed to be reparented? And maybe I can come up with an answer for myself, because I don't even know how I may identify how I can be reparented.
for me, I'm still learning that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still learning to love myself. Like I said, it was very hard for me to come and put myself out here today. Because sometimes I still have my ugly moments. I don't feel beautiful. Because not only the physical abuse was there, but it was mental, emotional, being called fat. I've always been a bigger girl. So, feeding myself positive affirmations that fed me love.
So affirmations.
Really learning to sit with myself and sit with my emotions. Because when I did try to say something or speak my mind as a child, I got shut down. I don't know what I'm talking about. Then go to your room.
And I dealt with the same thing, so I did want to kind of tap in on that too. But that could be very, very traumatic for a child, because for me, I didn't have adults who would listen to me speak. What you can see, I
Most
still
of us
have that
don't. Most
issue.
of us don't.
But listen, I have that issue still today. You know what I'm saying?
Like
Even
that.
being on this
To
podcast.
this day, we don't.
So that's part of me healing my inner child, right? I've identified it. I know what the work is. I've always been able to see through things, and a lot of adults couldn't handle the truth I gave. So it was like, okay, stay in the child's place, be quiet, don't say nothing.
Stay
But
in the
then,
child's place.
but then outside of there, all my friends' mamas would want to talk to me, all the adults would want to talk to me, but I didn't get that within my own family. So like they made me feel some type of way that I wasn't seen, you know. So to be now in a space where I want to speak and I get shut, like people will cut me off, I just leave it there, you know, because I've learned to just protect my peace. I'm not about to exert my voice or do more to be heard. Like my inner child already dealt with that pain of not being heard, you know. So I had to learn how to speak, learn how to hear myself. You know what I'm saying? I had to develop courage to speak, you know. So again, inner child healing has everything to do with the adult. Like I had to go back and love on her and like let her know it was okay to have a voice. You weren't wrong. They just couldn't accept what you had to say, or they didn't want to deal with the accountability of what a child was saying.
Or
you
they
know?
didn't know how.
Or didn't know how. You know, because again, no parent knows. There's no rule book to be a parent.
There's no blueprint to it, right?
So you learning as you go.
Right. So when we sitting there talking about inner child healing, right? I don't even apply it to my parents because there's no blueprint to parenting. So I don't hold them accountability to nothing. I didn't become this person because they didn't do this, they didn't do that. They provided me all the necessities in life, and there's a lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that I have to be accountable that I ain't listen to them, right? That I did not listen to my parents. So then in return, how am I gonna get mad when they don't listen to me? When they gave me guidance, they gave me instructions, I didn't listen. I made mistakes. I made big mistakes that they had to come back and save me from those for me not listening, right? So then one of the viewers made a comment to ask me what my definition of entitlement. When I first mentioned entitlement, I meant false sense of entitlement. A lot of children have a false sense of entitlement. A lot of that comes from the influence around them. Or they see their friends doing this, they see their friends have this and that. You're not growing up in that home. And then my parents always remind me, you're not growing up in that home. You're growing up in this home, and this is the path for you that we're providing for you, right? And then to be an adult, if you listen to me, I'm trying to make you a better adult than I am, because then, like when y'all was mentioning what the trauma or what the experience your parents have, when you got parents that want more for you, and they're trying to provide that for you, but you're not listening, but then you want to hold on to them not listening to you, it's a two-way path. Because if I listen more to them than worrying about them listening to me, man, you know where I'll be, man? I'll be somewhere dancing on the rings of Saturn, like, man, I done made it. You feel me? And I hear when other friends be like, man, I was listening to my parents, and these was the results, and then they started listening to me. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I dropped the ball at. You feel me? So then when I be like, inner child healing, my only inner child healing was I would have to rewind time and start listening to my parents, and I'll be in a better position now than I am now. I mean, I will be in a better position now.
And we spoke about that. We spoke a little
You know
bit
what I'm
about that when we was pre-gaming the show.
Yeah.
Right. Two things, because Audrina, you've been really contributory to our
And thank you
conversation.
to all of the
appreciate
commenters
it.
and
You
viewers.
And Sean, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Your input is important. And
Yes,
valuable.
parents have to take accountability too. Like for myself, I was very obedient, I was a great child. You know what I'm saying? Like I did everything I was supposed to do.
Tell
you
on
know?
yourself.
And I was mostly raised up under my
people pleaser.
Yeah, I didn't get in trouble. I didn't get whoopings. Like I was the one who kept everybody in line. I had younger siblings. Like I was like the second mother. So like there are people
You
who
was
are
overseer.
children.
You was
I
whole
was
overseer energy.
I was. But just because it doesn't necessarily mean that the child doesn't
don't like
listen.
that?
No, I hear you. I mean, I was like the mom wasn't an overseer. Like my siblings had freedom to move around and do what they wanted to do.
Your
But-
subordinates can move.
No, I was not like that. I wasn't. No, like
Why you trying to instigate?
she is.
Why you trying to instigate?
No, it wasn't.
I'm engaging Osa.
No, it wasn't.
Instigation.
I'm
Right,
instigating.
instigation.
I've always been
Osa.
this nurturing, like I always like to provide. Like so, it was My siblings had it real good.
Oh, you,
Like we ain't had
you
this
was a
type of
good
problem.
mama.
Yeah,
That's-
I ain't get issues
yeah,
until
you
we
a
were
Leo.
adults. But anyways,
So how was you as a child, Tanisha?
So, and I was going to
Oh,
speak on that.
shit.
I was going to speak on that in terms of what you said, in
I'm
terms
gonna
of
do
how
my
your
little
parents do,
investigation.
right? Go ahead, try me. Try me. So first, I was going to speak on Audrina. She said that the whole mind-body connection, right?
She skipped over that part.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna circle the block like you said. I'm gonna circle. I don't usually, but I will.
We still here on the porch, so we waiting.
I'm gonna come back.
We looking
so,
up the street.
Adrena mentioned the mind-body connection, and that's how I personally started recognizing my inner child traumas. It was like my body, like
Thank
if
y'all.
somebody done, I would be triggered. Like I would feel a certain kind of way. Like you would say something, and I would feel like defensive or jittery or anxiety just by something I would be triggered, and I'd be like, why am I responding like this? Why am I acting like this? So it was a mind body thing for me initially, and that helped, and that thing helped me recognize the pressures of my mom. We spoke about before the show in terms of how my mom and how my mom was I was a smart kid, right? Like, so I was the one she would brag to her friends about, she on the honor roll and all this, and it's like, oh, I told him, and now I feel pressure to perform. I feel pressure to bring home a good report card. I feel pressure to be active in academics. I don't have a lot of social life. I'm not really doing it, I'm not engaged in all this stuff I want to be engaged in because I'm pleasing my parents academically.
So when did you get
And
rebellious?
I never really got rebellious. I'm speaking about my inner child trauma and the pressures that I felt and how I had to break free of it. It is a positive thing, right? Like, you do want me to be more than you, to go further educationally than you went. You do want me to go to graduate school and all this kind of stuff. But maybe that's too much for me. Maybe I'm satisfied with a bachelor's degree. You know what I mean? Like, that's not good enough. And so for me, that created a person that never felt like I was good enough because, oh, you got a bachelor's. Oh, now you got to go to get a law school. What are you going to do now? It's like, what's the next, like, oh, I never saw you working in manufacturing. And like, it's always something, And so for my inner child, I had to come to, and it's only recently I had to come to myself like, okay, my mom is, and she not doing this because she really want me to aspire. She was doing this because she want to have, like, oh, I told my friend, this bragging rights, this church status, this society status, like my daughter doing this or my kids do this, and it's parents that live like that. That's like live on their children accomplishments and will push their children regardless of what their kids want. And that's in all. You got people you got boys that's playing football that don't want to play fucking football.
yeah.
That don't want to play, and
had other passions.
I have friends who's like, oh, my son don't want to play, his daddy making him play. Like, why?
Okay.
These are traumas you carry along like never good enough.
Wrap it up, but
We're gonna wrap it up, but
it's
that's my shit. That y'all asked me, I told y'all. Like, I'm an overachiever, not by choice, and I'm not gonna be in it no more. I'm regular as fuck. What's up?
It's so much that I could have shared, but we could definitely do another episode on this.
Do the finish.
Yeah.
Go ahead, close it out, Osa.
Well, no, because it's stories. It's time to close it up.
it's
But
all
I
stories.
appreciate the
Close it out,
viewers
Osa.
and y'all support. But
Absolutely,
yeah,
the viewers and shit.
as we know, we all have an inner child that may have had some type of experience in life that has shut you down, or where you just maybe not even knowing how to show up emotionally, or may have been had some type of trauma or some type of attachment issue or neglect or whatever. But the key is to truly sit with self. You could, in order to get in contact with your inner child, you can sit in meditation and just reflect on your inner child and those times where you may have wanted to receive more love, or the times where
Consider your ancestors.
you call on your ancestors, call on your spirit, whatever you believe in, to assist you in those moments. But allow yourself to love on that part of you that may not have received at that time, and forgive that part, forgive whatever whoever you had that interaction with, but truly just operate out of that new energy. Again, it's all about introspection, and just accepting who you are and what happened to you. But we will catch up with this another day.
Part 2.
Yeah, another day.
On one topic. Thanks for joining. Good
Thank
night
you
and
for
good day,
joining Tap
everybody.
In Talk. Peace.
Thank you, guests. Thank you so much.
Yes,
for
thank you,
joining us.
Dan.
Warning. You are now tuned in to 7 Mile Radio.